Well, hello there. My name is Ángel Andrés Rosario Rivera, and today I am presenting you a presentation of the story Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. I've already made a video of Shakespeare and the story Hamlet. Please check that out after this video and thank you. So, no more chit chat, let's get into it. First, let's get into the historical background. The story of Romeo and Juliet is based on a real Italian love story from the 3rd century, a story of the families, the Cappelletti and the Montecchi, and the love story of two characters, each being with the other family, which occurred in Verona. It is said that Shakespeare found out about this story by Arthur Brooks' poem The Tragical History of Romeo and Juliet. By setting the play in Italy, Shakespeare gave himself a window of opportunity to be able to criticize his society while seeming to criticize another foreign country and society. Next, into the setting. The play's setting is in the Italian city of Verona, like I mentioned. This city is also used for three other plays by Shakespeare, such as The Taming of the Shrew, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, and of course, Romeo and Juliet, this video's main topic. The story of Romeo and Juliet made the city famous, turning a lovely but unremarkable town in the shadow of Venice in northeast Italy into one of the world's most romantic destinations available. The city symbolizes a warm climate, its passionate people, and its veneration of romantic love. Now, let's get into the characters. First, Romeo, the son and heir of Montague and Lady Montague. A young man of about 16, Romeo is a handsome, intelligent, and sensible person. Through impulsive and immature, his idealism and passion make him an extremely likable character. He lives in the middle of a violent feud between his family and the Capulets, but he is not at all interested in the violence. He is only interested in love. Next, Juliet, the daughter of Capulet and Lady Capulet, a beautiful 13-year-old girl. Juliet begins the play as a naive child who has thought little about love and marriage. But she grows up quickly upon falling in love with Romeo, the son of her family's great enemy. Because she is a girl in an aristocratic family, she has none of the freedom Romeo none of the freedom Romeo roaming around the city, climbing on the walls in the middle of the night, or getting into sword fights. Nevertheless, she shows amazing courage in trusting her entire life and future to Romeo, even refusing to believe the worst reports about him after he gets involved in a fight with her cousin. Now, Friar Lawrence, a Franciscan friar, friend to both Romeo and Juliet, kind, civic-minded, a proponent of moderation, and always ready with a plan. Friar Lawrence secretly marries the impassioned lovers in hopes that the union might eventually bring peace to Verona. As well as being the Catholic holy man, Friar Lawrence is also an expert in the use of seemingly mystical potions and herbs. Next, Mercutio, a kinsman to the prince, and Romeo's close friend. Mercutio overflows with imagination, wits, and at times a strange, biting satire and brooding fervor. Mercutio loves wordplay, can be quite hot-headed, and hates people who are affected, pretentious, or obsessed with the latest fashions. Now, the nurse, Juliet, which she is Juliet's nurse, the woman who breastfed Juliet when she was a baby and has cared for Juliet her entire life. A vulgar, long winded, and sentimental character, the nurse provides comic relief with her frequently inappropriate remarks and speeches. But until the disagreements near the play's end, the nurse is Juliet's faithful confidant and loyal intermediary in Juliet's affair with Romeo. She provides contrast with Juliet's, given that her view of love is earthly and sexual, whereas Juliet is idealistic and intense. Now, to Bolt, a Capulet, Juliet's cousin on her mother's side, vain, fashionable, and supremely aware of courtesy and the lack of it. He becomes aggressive, violent, and quick to draw his sword when he feels his pride has been injured. Once drawn, his sword is something to be feared. He loathes the Montagues. Now, Benvolio, a Montague's nephew, Romeo's cousin, and thoughtful friend. Benvolio makes a genuine effort to diffuse violent scenes in public places, though Mercutio accuses him of having a nasty temper in private. He spends most of the play trying to help Romeo get his mind off Rosaline, which we'll get soon after, even after Romeo has fallen in love with Juliet. Now, Lord Capulet, the patriarch of the Capulet family, father of Juliet, husband of Lady Capulet, and enemy, for unexplained reasons, of Montague. He truly loves his daughter, though he is not well acquainted with Juliet's thoughts or feelings, and seems to think that what is best for her is a good match with Paris. Often prudent, he commands respect and propriety, but he is liable to fly into a rage when Ida is lacking. Now, Lady Capulet is Juliet's mother, the Capulet's wife, a woman who married young. By her estimation, she gave birth to Juliet at close to her age of 14. She is eager to see her daughter marry Paris. She is an ineffectual mother, relying on the nurses for moral and pragmatic support. Now, Lord Montague is Romeo's father, the patriarch of the Montagues clan and bitter enemy of Capulet. At the beginning of the play, he is chiefly concerned about Romeo's melancholy. Now, Lady Montague is Romeo's mother. Montague's wife, she dies of grief after Romeo is exiled to Verona, and she cares and loves for to Romeo. Since at the beginning of the play there is a fight, and her first thought is, "Where is my son Romeo?" Now, Paris is a kinsman of the prince and the suitor of Juliet's most preferred by Capulet. Once Capulet has promised him he can marry Juliet, he behaves very presumptuously toward her, acting as if they are already married. As a side note, Paris is almost or near 30, while Juliet, as I already said, is 13. Now, Prince Aeschylus. the Prince of Verona, a kinsman of Mercutio in Paris. As the seat of political power in Verona, he is, he is concerned about maintaining public peace at all costs, even if it means threatening both Montague and Capulet. Now, Friar John is a Franciscan friar charged by Friar Lawrence with taking the news of Juliet's false death to Romeo in Mantua, the place where Romeo was exiled. Friar John is held up in a quarantined house, and the message never reaches Romeo. Now, Balthazar is Romeo's dedicated servant who brings Romeo the news of Juliet's death, unaware that her death is a ruse. He and another Montague have a fight at the beginning of the play against two Capulets, which are Samson and Gregory, two servants of the house of Capulets who, like their master, hate the Montagues. At the outset of the play, they successfully provoke some Montague men into a fight. Now, I've already mentioned Balthazar, which is a Montague, but the other Montague is Abraham, Montague's servant, who fights with Samson and Gregory in the first scene of the play. Now, we got the apothecary, and an apothecary in Mantua. He had been wealthier. He might have been able, if he had been held wealthier, he might have been able to afford to value his morals more than money and refused to sell poison to Romeo. Now, Peter is a Capulet servant who invites guests to Capulet's feast or the Capulet ball and escorts the nurse to meet with Romeo. He is illiterate and a bad singer. Now, the final character, which I mentioned near at the beginning of this list of characters, is Rosaline, the woman with whom Romeo is infatuated at the beginning of the play. Rosaline never appears on stage, but it is said by other characters that she is very beautiful and has sworn to live a life of chastity. Now, that's all the characters. Now, let's get into the conflict, which the conflict that Shakespeare presents is the rivalry slash war of the two families, the Montagues family and the Capulet family, like I've already mentioned. Now, let's tell the story of Romeo and Juliet through the plot. A little summary, let's say. First, let's start with the exposition. It begins with servants of two feuding families, Samson and Gregory from the house of Capulet, confronting Balthazar and Abraham from the house of Montague, provoking a street brawl. Prince Escalette then puts an end to the brawl and threatens death if any further violation. This introduces the Waring families from an ancient grudge, which everybody in Verona is the grudge is so ancient that everybody in Verona, even the most or the eldest, the absolute elders, the oldest people in Verona weren't even alive when this feud started, which is why it's called an ancient grudge. And the idea that the menace between the two is a cause for trouble that should not be menaced with. During the play, We see encounters between the two, creating conflict after conflict after conflict after conflict, hating people like Tybalt, hating Montagues even more, and especially Benvolio, since at the start of the play he tried to put an end to the fights by getting himself in the fights, and Tybalt's response is to attack them, trying to kill them with his sword. Now, rising action. The rising action of the play of Romeo and Juliet occurs following Romeo and Juliet's first meeting at the Capulet Ball, which, as a side note or a parenthesis, Mercutio is a Montague, but he was invited to the Capulet Ball because he is a kinsman of Paris, who is a kinsman or a relative to Paris, not to Paris, to Prince Aeschylus. Tensions continue to mount between the Capulets and the Montagues, and Romeo and Juliet are forced to accept that their marriage will not receive approval from the respective families. This is also the rising action is also where the part or the most famous part of the entire story of Romeo and Juliet, where Romeo is hiding behind a tree or a bush, and behind the Capulet family, behind Juliet's room, and Juliet comes out of said room into the balcony, which which says the famous lines, "Oh Romeo, Romeo, where art thou, Romeo?" Now, the climax of the story is when a fight occurs between Tybalt, a Capulet, and Mercutio, a Montague, and Tybalt kills Mercutio, saying this and wanted to be protective and avenge his death. Romeo fights and kills Tybalt in revenge, but Romeo's decision led to the expulsion of the man or the young teenager of 16 and the Capulet pushing the wedding of Juliet and Paris even more sooner. Now, the fallen action is where Paris plans to marry Juliet, like he wanted to do it at the throughout all of the play, but he doesn't know of the secret marriage between Romeo and Juliet by Friar Lawrence. This is where Juliet goes to Friar Lawrence for a plan, leading to the final suspense where Romeo is informed of Juliet's death. This plan is that Juliet would fake her own death, which would give the impression of her family, the Capulets, that she is dead. She cannot marry Paris because somebody cannot simply marry a dead person. And her plan was that Romeo wouldn't be informed of this, and that she would because she took a pill that will make her go into a deep sleep, and and apparently it worked so well because a Montague saw this and went to inform Romeo, which is where the resolution of the story is at, which the story resolves that Romeo goes to the tomb and realizes he can't live without Juliet, thinking that she is dead, but she is not. He takes a poison that he bought from the apothecary and actually dies next to her. When Juliet wakes up and sees the body of Romeo, she can't believe it. She is frightened. She is scared. She can't imagine a life without him. But what was her decision? She kills herself with Romeo's dagger. She self-slaughters. After seeing so much death, Mercutio, Romeo, Juliet, Tybalt, the Montagues and the Capulets agree to place the differences aside and agree on the truth, ending finally ending the ancient grudge between the two powerful families. Now that we got now that the summary of Romeo and Juliet is over, let's go into a little bit of the literary devices that are present in the play. While there are more than seven literary devices, I'll only be including five of them, which are the following. First, metaphors, which describes something by saying that it's something else. It's is a simile, which is comparing, but more indirectly. For example, Remus is a pig when he eats, or she is an angel. A simile would be like Remus eats like he is a pig, like if he was a pig, or or she is like an angel. Now, now, a very important part of or a very important literary device is allusions, which is a figure of speech that makes a reference to people, places, events, or literary works directly or by implying them. It is up to the audience to make the connection. Example: he is a real Romeo with the ladies, which alludes to the play of or the main topic, Romeo and Juliet. The next literary device is symbolism, which is when a person, place, thing, or event that has meaning in itself also represents or stands for something else. For example, a goat symbolizes innocence. The bald eagle means the United States of America. It's the main animal of the country. And the white doves mean peace. Next, personification. Hi. Oh, sorry about that. A personification is giving a human trait to something non-human. For example, the leaves danced on the wind. A leaf is not a person; it's an object. But by saying danced on the wind, humans danced. Humans dance. So by saying the leaves danced on the wind, it's it's a personification. It's giving the leaves a human trait. Another example, the angry sore was visible, or my heart was competing with my head. Now, oxymorons, which is the final literary device that I have here. What is an oxymoron? Well, it is a literary device combining two contradictory words to create a new figure of speech. The example, deafening silence. What is deaf? What deafening means? Well, it means deaf. Deaf means not deaf like somebody died. Deaf, which means that let's say let's put a human, for example. Deaf means that that person cannot hear or speak. It's mostly not being able to hear, but there are people that cannot hear nor speak. So what do they use? They use sign language as a form of to speak, to have a conversation with someone, or to order a burger from Burger King or McDonald's, or order a pizza from Pizza Hut or Fancy Pizza, etc. Now, let's get into the themes. Like the literary device, the literary devices, there are more than five themes, but five of them are love, violence. Side note: Ukraine will win the war. Life, death, and fate. So, love is like the love between Romeo and Juliet. Violence, the war between the Capulets and the Montagues. Life, the what Romeo and Juliet feel. Death, what happens to Romeo and Juliet. And fate, the love so strong between Romeo and Juliet. Juliet thought that she would get married to Paris, but when she saw Romeo, she was like, this is fate. This is my Prince Charming. Now, symbols, like following the last two, there are more than five symbols in the play, but five symbols are that appear in the play or the story are poison, fire, a rose or rose, stars, and mask. Now, something new in the for like for an for analyzing Romeo and Juliet is we're going to talk about the prose and poetry in the play Romeo and Juliet. So, what is prose? So, prose is a writing of speech in its normal continuous form. In the play, regularly means that that a character, such as Peter, speaks, since they are low status characters, while Romeo usually uses verses, but also prose. An example of this is the image you see on the screen. Like, well, not really, not really. I just put that there just to make the analyzation just a little bit bigger. So away from that, poetry. So what is poetry? Most of you have already heard the word poetry, but some of you probably don't know what that means. So, poetry is written to be spoken or acted in public in front of an audience, often revealing the inner psychology of a character, and must be told from the point of view of a particular person. In the play, an example of this is the image you see as screen at. We'll get to the image soon. I think I forgot about this, but let's get to the sonnets. Let's get to the sonnets now. Again, like prose and poetry, some of you may have heard what sonnet mean. What is the word sonnet? What some of you think or know what sonnet means, or some of you have never heard of this word. Well, a sonnet is a poem that uses 14 or more lines using any of several normal rhyme schemes. And something that probably that if you heard sonnet, you probably heard about this, or if not, that's okay, is iambic pentameter, which is a line of verse with metrical feet, each consisting of one short syllable followed by a long syllable. Here is an example of a line of poetry that is written in iambic pentameter, the which, if you with patient ears attend. Now, if you want, you can pause the video, but count the syllables on your fingers. I will continue the presentation, so if you want to pause it, that's fine. You can do it. Now, I will show you an example of poetry or sonnets or iambic pentameter in the play of Romeo and Juliet. This verse or poetry is in the prologue of the play. If you see any movie there, which I recommend the 1968 version of Romeo and Juliet, which is written, which is told in in early modern English. That's a whole other issue, but that's the language that Shakespeare used for his plays. So, like I said, I recommend you search up YouTube to hear or see the poetry in the prologue, but of Romeo and Juliet. But here it is: two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where relay are seen. From ancient grudge break to mutiny, where civil blood make civil hands unclean. From the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventure piteous overthrows, doth with the death bury the parents' strife. The faithful passage of their death marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hour traffic of our stage. That if you with parent ears attend, shall hear what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. Now, you see some letters in the screen, but like in the screen. Now, notice that a Shakespearean sonnet can be divided into 4 parts based on the rhyme scheme. You see 4 parts. You see 4 parts all divided. They are called quatrain. What is quatrain? They have 4 verses or lines, and you see that there's boxes around some lines. There are 4 lines or verses. That is called a quatrain. Now, the last one you you see at the screen, I do not know what it's called, but it is not a quatrain because it doesn't have 4, it only has 2. Now, to finalize this video, you see that there are like letters at the end like of the end of these lines, like A B C D C D. These letters are to like mark which lines rhyme. Like for example, two households, both alike in dignity, and the line from ancient grudge breaks to new mutiny. Both dignity and mutiny rhyme, while the lines in fair Verona, where relay are seen, and where civil blood makes civil hands unclean, those two rhyme as well. Seen and unclean. So dignity and mutiny, those two rhymes are presented with the letter A, while the lines that end with seen and unclean are presented with the letter B. This is the exact same thing for the other verses, but instead of A or B, they use the C, the D, the E, the F, or the G. Like the same thing. The lines from the fourth, the fatal lines of these two foes, and whose misadventure piteous overthrows, foes and overthrows their rhyme. So they're marked with C, and the lines, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, and doth with a death bury their parents' strife. Life, strife, they rhyme. They're marked with a D. It's the exact same thing for the third one, but the fourth one, the last one, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. There are only two lines, which is not a quatrain. Since they are the last two, they are marked with a G. Like since attend and mend do rhyme, since they do end with the letters E, N, and D, and since the last two, and there are no more lines, they're marked with a G. So that's it. That's the video. That's the that's the presentation of Romeo and Juliet. Thanks for watching. I know it was longer than it needed to be. I planned it to make it like 25 minutes this video, but I did had to analyze the last parts. So it took me a longer than I thought. So again, thank you for watching. Like leave a subscribe, like give positive or like get let like give a comment on how the video was. Like while I do like the videos, like I do more like I already do videos, but they're all school related. The shorts, go watch them. There are some good ones, there are some bad ones. I'm going to admit that, but the long videos are about the schoolwork, while shorts are whatever I want to post, which is normally me being outside, which is yes, just new. Like in the shorts, you will see that the second highest points of a junque, which is a multiple mountains in Puerto Rico. If you do not live in Puerto Rico or do not know what junque is, you will see videos of me at the beach, and yeah, I know I'm rambling too much, but like I said, thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't to, and put those and click that bell notification if you haven't done it yet. And I will see you the next time I upload, or I need to upload because I want to make money. So anyway, I'll see you sometime later. Don't know when, but I'll see you later.